My name is Stella. I am 20 years old, and I grew up in a quiet home in Austin, Texas. My family was simple, respectful, and close. We were not rich, but we had something more important: trust in each other and clear values. My mother was the heart of our home. She believed that life could be kind, but only if you were careful with your heart. There was one sentence she repeated to me again and again, especially when I was a teenager. She would look at me seriously and say, "Never trust people too fast. Some mistakes can never be erased." At that time, I smiled and nodded, but deep inside, I thought she worried too much. I believed that bad things happened to other people, not to me. I was young, curious, and confident that I could understand people easily. Looking back now, I realize how wrong I was. We had a helper at home named Brandon. He was 23 years old, tall, handsome, and always polite. He cleaned the house, watered the garden, and fixed small things around the yard. Everyone in my family trusted him. My parents often said he was a good boy who had suffered a lot in life. He grew up poor, and his past was not easy. Sometimes, when I saw him working quietly outside, I noticed a deep sadness in his eyes. It made me feel sorry for him. Brandon rarely spoke much, but when he did, his voice was calm and gentle. Sometimes, I felt his eyes following me, but I told myself I was imagining it. I was a college student, busy with classes and dreams about my future. I didn't think someone like him could change my life forever. One afternoon, I came home from college feeling tired. My parents were out, and the house was quiet. I went straight to my room to change my clothes. I was thinking about homework, exams, and nothing else. In my hurry, I forgot to close the door properly. And then it happened. I turned slightly and saw Brandon standing near the door. He was looking at me. For a moment, time stopped. My heart jumped into my throat. I felt heat rush to my face. I was ashamed, shocked, and confused all at once. I waited for him to apologize or turn away. But he didn't. He smiled. Not a kind smile, but a strange one. Then he laughed softly, as if nothing serious had happened, as if this moment did not matter at all. I stood frozen. I didn't scream. I didn't tell him to leave. I said nothing. I don't know why I stayed silent. Maybe I was scared. Maybe I was confused. Or maybe, deep inside, I didn't yet understand how dangerous silence could be. That moment changed something inside me forever. And even today, the same questions still haunt my heart. Why didn't I scream? Why didn't I run? After that day, something between Brandon and me quietly changed. We never talked about what had happened near my bedroom door, but the silence itself felt heavy. Every time our eyes met, I felt my heart beat faster. I told myself it was nothing, that I was just embarrassed. Still, a strange connection had already begun to grow. Soon, we started talking in secret. It began with small conversations in the kitchen when no one else was home. He asked me about college, my dreams, and the life I wanted to build one day. No one had ever listened to me like that before. When he looked at me, it felt as if I truly mattered. Those moments filled a quiet emptiness inside my heart that I didn't even know existed. Brandon knew exactly what to say. He often looked at me gently and whispered, "You are so beautiful, Stella." I had heard compliments before, but his words felt different. They touched my insecurities, my doubts, my need to feel seen. I was young, and I wanted to believe someone truly cared about me. We laughed together. We shared food when the house was empty. Sometimes, we sat in silence, and it felt comfortable, almost peaceful. In those moments, I forgot my mother's warning. I forgot the fear I had felt that first day. All I could see was the attention, the warmth, and the feeling of being chosen. One day, Brandon said something that stayed in my mind for a long time. He looked at me seriously and said, "I am not your status, but status cannot stop love." I smiled when he said that. It sounded brave. It sounded romantic. I told myself that love should be strong enough to break all rules. I believed him, because I wanted to. But love, real love, does not hide in shadows. One night, when the house was quiet and everyone was asleep, Brandon came into my room. I remember how fast my heart was beating. I remember feeling nervous but also excited. I thought this was love testing me, asking me to trust it completely. That night, I crossed a line I can never erase. At one point, he took out his phone and started recording. When I asked him why, he smiled softly and said, "This is just for memories. One day, we will smile watching this." His voice sounded gentle. His eyes looked calm. I believed him with my whole heart. I trusted him. A few days later, Brandon disappeared. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't leave a message. He simply vanished from my life as if I had never existed. I stopped eating. I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed every word, every smile, every promise. My parents talked about him kindly, saying he was a good boy who had moved on. They had no idea who he truly was. That was when I realized the truth. What I thought was love was only a game to him. And I was the one left alone, broken and afraid, holding a pain I did not know how to name. After Brandon disappeared, my life fell into a quiet darkness. I walked through my days like a shadow, smiling when I had to, answering when spoken to, but feeling completely empty inside. At night, sleep refused to come. When I closed my eyes, my mind replayed everything again and again. The words he used, the way I trusted him, the moment I realized I had been used. Shame wrapped itself around my heart like a heavy chain. I was afraid all the time. Afraid someone would find out. Afraid I would see Brandon again. Afraid that my parents would look at me differently if they knew the truth. I started blaming myself for everything. I told myself I was weak, foolish, and careless. I felt dirty inside, as if one mistake had erased all the good parts of me. My family noticed that something was wrong, but they didn't know why. They only saw their daughter growing quieter day by day. The silence was killing me. Every time my mother looked at me with concern in her eyes, my chest felt tight. I wanted to tell her everything, but the words felt stuck in my throat. I was scared of her reaction. I imagined anger, disappointment, and shame. I thought that if I spoke the truth, I would lose her respect forever. One evening, I could not hold it in anymore. I sat next to my mother in the living room. My hands were shaking. Tears filled my eyes before I even spoke. My voice broke as I told her everything: the secret conversations, the night I trusted Brandon, the video, and the pain he left behind. I cried so hard that I could barely breathe. I kept repeating, "I'm sorry, Mom. I made a mistake. I trusted him." She didn't interrupt me. When I finally finished, she pulled me into her arms and held me tightly. She didn't shout. She didn't judge. She didn't ask harsh questions. She simply held me while I cried, like she did when I was a child. After a long silence, she softly said, "Stella, you are not a bad girl. When we are young, we sometimes make mistakes. But a good person feels sorry and wants to be better. This is not the end of your life." Her words felt like warm light breaking through the darkness inside me. She looked into my eyes and continued, "Your past does not define your future. You can still choose who you want to become." That night, for the first time in a long while, I slept. With my mother's support, I slowly began to heal. I decided not to let my past destroy my future. I found a new job at a small company and focused on my work. I kept my head down and worked hard every day. I didn't talk much, but inside, something was changing. I was no longer running from my pain. I was learning to stand again, quietly, step by step, believing that my life could still be beautiful. Starting my new job felt like learning how to breathe again. The company was small, and no one knew my past. I was just Stella, the quiet girl who arrived early, stayed focused, and worked hard. I didn't talk much about myself. Instead, I poured all my energy into my work. Day by day, I felt a small sense of pride returning. I was rebuilding myself, slowly and carefully. One morning, everything changed. Our office received unexpected news. The owner of a large and successful company, Mr. Smith, was coming to visit. His company's website had suddenly crashed, and the problem was serious. The site was down, and no one could find the cause. Panic filled the office. People whispered nervously, afraid of losing an important client. I sat quietly at my desk, listening. Something inside me said, "Try." I opened the system, studied the code, and followed the problem step by step. My hands moved quickly, but my mind was calm. 30 minutes later, the website was working perfectly again. The office fell silent. Mr. Smith looked at the screen, then at me, clearly surprised. "How did you do that?" he asked. I smiled politely and answered, "I'm very good at my work." He laughed softly, impressed. For the first time in a long while, I felt seen for the right reason. Mr. Smith thanked me in front of everyone and spoke to me with respect, not curiosity or judgment. Later that day, he sent me an invitation to a success party hosted by his company. At first, I refused. Crowded places still made me uncomfortable. I told him, "Thank you, sir, but I'm a simple girl. I don't feel comfortable at big parties." He smiled and replied, "Please come. I just want to thank you properly." That night, I decided to go. When I arrived, bright lights and soft music filled the room. People turned to look at me, and I felt shy, but also proud. I was no longer hiding. Mr. Smith welcomed me warmly and said, "You look very nice, Stella. I'm glad you came." Then, I felt it. Someone was watching me. I turned and saw a man standing quietly across the room. His gaze wasn't uncomfortable or sharp. It was calm, respectful. When our eyes met, I didn't feel fear. I felt safe. Later, Mr. Smith introduced him to me. "Stella, this is my son, Cillian." Cillian greeted me with a gentle smile. He was handsome, but more importantly, he made me feel at ease. He spoke kindly and listened carefully. There was no pressure, no hidden meaning in his words. For the first time in a long time, my heart felt peaceful. Our relationship grew slowly. We talked every day, sharing thoughts, dreams, and small moments. He never rushed me. He never crossed my boundaries. His love was patient and steady. One day, Cillian looked at me seriously and said he wanted to marry me. My heart filled with joy and fear. I said yes, but deep inside, a quiet voice whispered, "What if he learns about your past? Will he still love you?" Life had given me a second chance. I just hoped I wouldn't lose it. Just when I thought my life was finally calm, the past returned without warning. One afternoon, Cillian and I were sitting in a small park, enjoying the quiet. Suddenly, I saw a familiar face across the path. My heart froze. It was Brandon. He stood there, watching me with the same strange smile. I felt sick. I quickly stood up and said, "Let's go. I'm feeling hungry." Cillian noticed my fear but said nothing. As we walked away, I knew something terrible was coming. The next morning, everything collapsed. I walked into the kitchen to make coffee. Cillian was sitting in the living room, staring at his phone. His face was pale. When he looked at me, his eyes were full of pain and confusion. "Stella," he said quietly, "what is this?" He showed me the screen. My heart stopped. Brandon had posted the old video and a photo of my body online. My hands began to shake. The room felt cold and unreal. I could barely stand. Tears filled my eyes as I tried to speak. "Cillian, I was young. I was stupid. I made a mistake. He used me, and I didn't know." My voice broke. "Please believe me." Cillian stayed silent for a long moment. That silence hurt more than any shout. Finally, he spoke. "I was honest with you on our first night. I told you about my past. But you didn't tell me yours." I cried openly. I was scared. I thought if you knew, you would stop loving me. I felt ashamed. But I am not that girl anymore. I understand love now. I choose you. He looked at me, then gently held my hands. Everyone makes mistakes, he said. I care about who you are now, not what happened before. Real love doesn't punish. It protects. In that moment, I felt truly forgiven. Today, we live in London with our little son Edward. Our home is filled with honesty, trust, and warmth. My past no longer controls me. It taught me the difference between sweet words and real love. Not every compliment means care. Not every smile means respect. A true man will protect your dignity, not destroy it. If this story touched your heart, like this video if you believe in healthy love. Comment your thoughts or feelings below. And subscribe to continue learning English through real-life stories that heal, inspire, and stay with you.